There's no other scene quite like a queue of people that have passerbys perplexed as to what's going on. So what's everybody in line for? Oh, FKA Twigs. Oh, so she's like performing.
Oh, she's selling her clothes.
Oh, okay. With celebrity closet sales and road pop-ups, people are willing to wait hours on end to get their hands on these coveted products. So in today's video, we'll go ahead and explore this exact phenomenon, the origins of sample sales, streetwear's role in all this, and why the queue is the new happening place to be. Also, welcome if you're new here. My name is Malaya, and let's get on with the video.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
The origins of sample sales can really be traced back to the 1970s and the 1980s within New York City. Done as a way to sell off discounted garments from fashion shows and magazine shoots, these sample sales were strictly an industry-only event, with many of these sales happening in offices, basements, and warehouses, and with some showrooms even calling for very last-minute sample sales. One simply couldn't find them lying around in the street unless they otherwise were handed a flyer or had some sort of insider source. So it was certainly no easy feat in order to get into these events. And according to a New York Times article that was published in 1996 about the hush-hush nature of sample sales, they said, just a decade ago, you had to bribe the elevator operator to get in. It was all word of mouth, an underground venue for designers to recoup a small amount of money by selling design samples to industry insiders. Despite this barrier to entry, sample sales still grew quite gradually. In 1987, there were 247 sample sales in Manhattan, 80% of which were transactions done by cash. And later on, in 1995, the number of sales had grown to a figure of 1,593, with 90% of transactions done with credit cards. And once sample sales really became a staple within the New York fashion scene, really long lines would start to form that would cover around the block. And because of this, we really started to see the inception of these so-called line sitters who would essentially be hired and would wait in line for their clients if their clients so decided to choose that they didn't want to wait hours in line. And once this line sitter ended up being in the front of the line, then they would simply switch over. And with the promise of quick cash from sellers as well as a great bargain for fashion enthusiasts, sample sales sort of started becoming a business as there were more causes for them to have mailing lists, private clients, and organized newsletters on who's allowed entry. Still, high-end designers weren't as quick to vocalize their participation in sample sales, mainly because they didn't want to cheapen their image, according to the New York Times. Today, these luxury sample sales are still very hush-hush, as brands such as Celine, Gucci, and Hermes exclusively hold out these sample sales for employees as well as friends of the brand. And the lucky few outsiders who are able to get access to this are part of a carefully curated list of handpicked guests who are namely high-profile fashion editors or industry members. But more recently, in the past decades, bloggers and content creators alike have worked to dispel the privacy of these sample sales, as this was an industry that was once heavily shrouded in lots of secrecy. The floodgates have suddenly opened, so the general public could also be in the know of the latest sample sales happening thanks to apps such as Instagram and TikTok. Now, as for Streetwear's role in all this, we can really look to their culture to really understand how they were able to generate lots of hype when it came to their apparel and sneaker drops. Just like sample sales, they were also able to adopt that same sort of exclusivity when it came to their limited edition releases of their products. Their strategy really traces back to this idea of drop culture. According to the Qit blog, they define this as the thinking, behavior, and community of customers and brands that embrace product drops. In action, it's essentially when a brand releases an item for a limited amount of time, which can range from a plethora of items like apparel, beauty products, or just any random item. And what makes these hype drops really exciting is the fact that they are able to create scarcity, competition, and urgency within their buyers. And it's all about supply and demand, baby. One of the pioneers for this business model was a Japanese streetwear brand from the 1990s called Good Enough. Boasting a really hefty price tag, their brand had releases of one-off limited supply apparel. This would of course lead them to build a massive cult following, quickly becoming a status symbol for those in the know within the trendy youth and skater communities of Japan. And similarly, around the 90s, Supreme was also popping off in New York City with that same business tactic in mind of one-off limited supply apparel and skateboards, garnering a very loyal fan base. Many can also credit Nike Air's Jordan 1 release as the first hype sneaker drop released in 1985. Precisely a month and 3 days after the launch of the sneaker, it was actually banned by the NBA as it didn't meet the regulation for Michael Jordan to wear on the court. And of course, Nike was quick to capitalize off of this controversy, and to combat this, they made a commercial titled Banned in 1985 with 2 censored blocks over the shoes. And of course, the dispute really added to the appeal as they sold an approximate of 1.5 million pairs in the first 6 weeks alone. And Supreme was also infamously known for selling some of the most ridiculous products when it came to their product drops, some of which include but are not limited to the Stash Bible, a brick, nunchucks, and you could say my favorite, a sand timer. I can't tell whether or not I'm impressed by the fact that they're able to just slap their logo into anything and sell it for hundreds of dollars, but hey, the brand loyalists bought into it. However, it was really Supreme's collab with Louis Vuitton in 2017 that generated lots of hype, and where we really start to see this sort of business model pop up within the mainstream as more and more brands started to see the value in these exclusive one-off drops. And this collab was a really, really big deal. So big, in fact, that there were several global pop-ups around the world, with many fans camping out days before the doors even opened. For Iwan Jeffrey, a software developer, he was part of more than 1,000 people in line for the London pop-up. And another fan named Jae Sung, a business student who traveled from Liverpool to London, had waited in line for over 20 hours as he lined up around 2 p.m. the day before the doors even opened. And in the New York pop-up location, residents that were living near the pop-up location were outraged that such an event was being proposed for this quiet street. And according to Hypebeast, 2 days in advance, the line was so long and stretched around the block that even shop owners complained that people were blocking the entrances of their storefronts. And as for the LA pop-up, the Los Angeles Times were able to capture footage of these attendees and the sort of motivations they had, and also the lengths they went to in order to be part of this event.
Supreme is one of the dopest streetwear brand out right now. Only a couple locations in the world are releasing this.
I actually flew from San Francisco. As soon as my friend said he knew the address, I hopped right on the plane, slid right here ASAP. Had to.
And reportedly in Tokyo, there was an estimated 7,500 people that had gathered for the launch. Other brands were really quick to follow suit as they started to see the value of doing this sort of model. In that same year that Supreme had launched their collab with Louis Vuitton in 2017, Glossier also had their very own little pop-up for their temporary store. And we can also see that other brands such as Skims also held their very own pop-up events, such as the one on Valentine's Day. With the success of streetwear really creating the sort of spectacle when it comes to these lines and cues, we can really begin to understand how we got to where we are today. So Days Digital were very inquisitive in creating these two articles surrounding this very idea of sample sales and Rhodes pop-up. Being a part of a queue or a line going into somewhere is an experience all on its own. And for the attendees who set these very early alarms at the crack hour of dawn, for many of them, it was a worthwhile experience. To some random person on the street who's simply just trying to get to work, the fleeting thought of why these people are in line so early escapes rapidly from their mind. But to the people in the line, only they understand why they're there and how they're deriving value from it. And London-based beauty trend forecaster and brand consultant Louise Whitbread believes owning a small share of a virtual beauty brand has increasingly become a status symbol. She remarks that being able to say, "I got a branded Rhode water bottle," or "I was the first person there," lends consumers a certain type of clout. And similarly, Dr. Helen Damon, a psychologist and senior lecturer, also feels the same way about this. If it were that easy for anyone to just walk in and grab the products without waiting in line, then the perceived value of that said product isn't as high. So it's in the best interest of the brand to really try to make their products part of an exclusive experience. Dr. Damon says that people think, "I'm in a prize position," or "I'm at a prize location," and you're not. And then it becomes an accomplishment for the attendee to score on these holy grailed products. And for fashion lovers, the queue is also another spectacle where they can really pull up in a great fit and flex on them too. And the anticipation of it all is also something that starts to build within the attendees, because all this patience and all this waiting, well, it'll finally amount to when I'm actually inside of the store. It's kind of like you're playing the long game. And it is true that in the case of Rhode specifically, you can just buy the products online, but that takes away from the immersiveness and the experience that you're able to get when you're actually in line waiting for the products. And there's also something about getting a feel for the products in person first before simply just buying them online is what a lot of people who are waiting in these lines value as well too. And I think what Rhode does really well in is the fact that they're able to really let their consumers get inside the world of their brand and their identity and make it seem as if they're part of what the Rhode community stands for. And for some, the queue is also a great place to connect with people over a shared interest, because what better place to know whether or not you and this person are meant to be friends in this line together waiting hours on end. It's really a place where there is lots of opportunity for true connection since you guys have similar interests. I feel like once you're in these queues, you really start to feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, and that you're surrounded by people who also have the same passion as you. For 3 queue dwellers who were standing in a Wales Bonner archive sale in London, they were able to really chat it up and discuss things such as their wishlist items, travel, or even work, to really pass by the time and have the opportunity to, talk to people. And who doesn't love a little connection? And for others, just the act of being there and filming their experience for social media is also another motivator. Making content and posting their videos is proof of their participation. And in a space where brands constantly trying to sell their products out to us, it is a bit refreshing seeing this authentic content made by the most loyal and avid fans out there. These loyal brand ambassadors really represent who the brand is at their core, and make this content completely out of free will without being paid, which can be nice because of the fact that brands are pretty known for their all too gimmicky and authentic sponsored reviews. For some of the women that were out in line for the road pop-up events, many of them admitted to really wanting to emulate Hailey's cool girl, sophisticated style. And though they may never achieve what it might be like to be Hailey herself, they can get one small slice of what her brand is and her lifestyle through buying these products from her. And the sort of thinking can also be harkened back to the celebrity closet sales, where people really felt as if they could buy into the idea of the celebrity by purchasing their old clothes. Take, for example, this beloved actress Chloe's The Sale of the Century closet sale, where lots of people gathered to be in line in order to get access to her pieces. Many who were also in attendance for this event also recounted Chloe recalling the memories behind each of her pieces, adding to the appeal to buy into them. Now, as for the team who were able to organize these pop-up events in London and more recently in Los Angeles, they definitely set the standard for what a pop-up event can look like and how brands can start integrating this into their marketing. For their London pop-up last year, attendees recall being offered hot cocoa and cinnamon buns, which is just so nice. And more recently, in their Los Angeles pop-up, people were offered lots of freebies, including burritos, fruit drink refreshers, and umbrellas to protect them from the sun, as well as these sort of lottery tickets to see the sort of small freebies that they could win too. So overall, the Q is where it's at, and it's really become a social and cultural hub, and almost acting as if it's also some sort of evolved subculture of the fashion and beauty scene. And I'm certainly in favor of all of this. Now, despite the consumerist nature, there is some merit in these sample sales as well as these celebrity closet sales, because if you think about it, there's a lot of unused clothing out there, and to think that there are events that are being hosted like this in order for these articles of clothing to find a new home, to be loved and appreciated, well, sounds like a good deal to me. And the feeling of camaraderie over a brand, as well as the fleeting connection with a stranger, is a worthwhile experience, as it really brings people together. And even though you may be by yourself waiting in line, you are never really alone, as those same people who are also waiting in the line with you are in your same shoes. And that is it. Thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate you guys so much. And I love hearing all your comments. So let me know what you think about this. If you've had any sort of horror stories when it came to participating in these sample sale events, I'd love to hear them. Okay, bye, cool cats.